force the clash away. They've of course got the air jabs of Alamau as well, just preventing him from pushing too far forward. But there we go, we see the asphyxiation bolt just force Deadshot back on into Terrace. Alamau manages to pick up Naquo. 4 versus 4 after the opener was picked up onto Dorky. Lion taken off the board, so big loss with those E1D scans, and need to be careful because this breach is being challenged by GENG. Looking pretty solid so far, I think, on this defense.
Yeah, not looking too bad at all. And I think Skies as well is worth keeping an eye on. He did clear out Doku, who I believe was pushing in out towards Geisha side. In fact, no, his Blad is closing out there now. It was Doku's been picked up for free elsewhere. And so they've got a little more freedom to play around with here, knowing that at least one angle has been covered off. Here we go. Blad starts his march on forward. There was a couple of players earlier playing around Terrace. In fact, Azox is still there. It's another direction they've now got to pay respect and attention to. Hoping he finds one picking on through, but he is right. There's a player in there off towards the left-hand side. But it's got to be careful of this one. Pressure from both directions, door and in towards Drum. Starting to open up, but they've got to punish him here. He's down very, very low on HP and has to die.
Lyra is going to pick up Deadshot elsewhere. They've absolutely no idea. There was nearly a missed opportunity for Azox. Glass does manage to find himself in the dirt, though, as Azox picks up the shots. Lyra finds 2 elsewhere to keep G2 on top. Alamau is down. That leaves us now effectively...
Oh! The whole ace team!
I didn't think it was going to be over that quickly. He takes the peek on into Terrace, picks up his man, and G2 take round 1.
That was just crazy, because obviously he picked up 3 kills while we were watching the... You could arguably say the failure of G2 to pushing towards Terrace, with Azox tucked inside there, was dodging the player on the door, then dealt with Blaz, who came running on through on the thermite from Drum, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then suddenly it flashes up, oh, triple kill. And I was like, hang on a minute. Just keeps on cooking the whole way through, and that is certainly a way to shut down any bit of hope that GENG may have had in that first round. So far, they carry on as they did back on Bank.
Yeah, they just keep on rolling. It seems like the easiest thing in the world for them right now, doesn't it? Be the confusion there, if anybody's wondering, of I know it said Stompn, but quad kill. It was because Stompn had finished off somebody that Lyra had downed, so it was classes as the kill for Lyra because he was still alive at that point. So G2 1-0, and they're going to be attacking onto the same site again. GENG. They're going to give it another go. I don't think they were a million miles away necessarily. They kind of had it, you know, like 3 versus 2, 3 versus 3. So they were steady away fighting through it. You know, I think they're probably looking at that and thinking, well, you know, look, Lyra's coming with an ace. It's not something that's going to be repeated continually. The way the G2 are playing today, I'm not too sure. But, you know, we'll find out.
Alrighty. Let's see how we march on forward. Alamau deciding he wants a bit more action, more involvement. Move across on towards the Nook. Of course, some excitement there around the new DMR that's coming to her. Big question whether or not it'll make it probably one of the most broken operators in the game at that point. Will be very, very dangerous. Already can be, of course, against unaware teams, but that DMR might just add a little bit of extra smack.
Yeah, I mean, super popular at the moment for a reason, and being brought along on a number of operators, as you say. The knock here of Alamau just working his way through. A little nod to his Brazilian compatriots with the Team Liquid skin on the gun as well, you might have noticed. He's going to look to work his way up house stairs. He's just holding his position at the time being, while the rest of his team trying to massage this defense a little bit. Need to be careful. A common angle to be held down onto that kitchen window, and there is indeed somebody playing above there. It's Asa on the mute. Not going to give himself away just yet, but will he make a challenge now? Somebody's just jumped into kitchen. Lyra does manage to go in and find himself a little bit of space. Starts spraying around from underneath. So that's got him in the building safely, and they can start to challenge onto these defensive positions.
Asking questions the same way they did back on Bank in very similar fashion as well. Just poking around, hoping to catch somebody out. Also got that other phone call here to come out. First one comes out there. The second one, of course, to follow shortly after, I don't imagine. Naquo finding Blaz here, starting to warp at least a little bit. Not a bad thing to have, as I mentioned before. One of their top players across previous events needs to go pretty big. Lyra, well, that spray maybe not doing exactly what he wanted to, but gets rid of the one. And now starting to ask questions of the remaining 4 players.
Lyra is going to finally be taken down after 6 consecutive kills. It's going to be Skies who manages to pick him up. Stompn picks up Deadshot, 3 versus 3. Naquo and Acid both super low health at the minute as well, and that's not something that can be said of any of the G2 players. Now then, I think they are aware of the presence of one inside of Karaoke. Yes, they are. Going to see a nade going in there, but Skies is there to back his teammate up. Manages to pick up the kill onto Doki. 3 versus 2, but a lot of low health across the side of GENG. Are they able to hold on? You'd have to hope so.
Can't get away with him like, making himself known here because of the barbed wire, but opts to go for it anyway. A couple of sound cues that hopefully GENG have picked up on. Granted, they aren't super close here.
They know.
One lay down. I think they might be looking towards him here, but that doesn't mean Stompn can't carry on. Just doing what he does always, Tim. And here we go. Ready comes for one. Looking for a second as well. So close here to getting rid of Asa, but doesn't need to go hyper-aggressive for that one. Holds the angle, and Alamal finds him. Stompn and Alamal doubling up to close out what looked like a bit of a rocky round for a while, Tim.
GENG are in all sorts of trouble nowadays. They are in all sorts of trouble. The point where they lose that round is Stompn picking the kill up from Terrace, and that's not to. I'm not. So some of the tools they had the air jab, they had the track stingers, but they knew that clash had support from inside of Terrace. So every time they threw a track stinger, it was just shot out. Every time an air jab came out, it was just dealt with. It was removed. And you know, GENG did everything they could to keep that clash in position. And I think there comes a point as G2 where you've just got to say, enough's enough. Let's play. We've given a bad bit back. Let's get into this breaching that we wanted to do, and you know, go and do that. Go and focus on that rather than, you know, banging your head against that. But hey ho, we move on. 2-2. GENG played it well, get themselves around, and looking to get a bit of confidence built as well. Look at this, having a little bit of a peek outside of that hole that they've just opened up in the VIP wall. Will go for the reinforce now, so they are trying to hold G2 off from a push across the top floor. But to finish my first point, G2 have got the 2. That's the minimum they will have wanted on the attack. Anything else is a bonus to them at this point. I genuinely think 3 attacks will be enough.
What I love about that attempted spawn peak is it's so rare that we see it at the top level. Like, that normally is hard reinforced off early. You'll play around jammers, you'll play around Kaid, around Bandit if they're available. But instead leaving it soft, only for long enough that they can't get on the balcony and then challenge you as you're reinforcing, admittedly. I think it was just really interesting. And though it didn't work out, if it had, that would have been genius.
GENG have been doing really well on the entry so far. Let's see if it can continue, but Alamo is just going to run into sight. He's looking for anybody. Finds his man finally in behind the bar. That's going to be the opening kill, so the entry does go in favour of G2 this time. Doki manages to double down, picking up Asa. 5 versus 3 now, as they do manage to start fighting back here. The GENG, nearly a missed opportunity for Bloira, but the smoke clears just in time. Picks up his man, Skies goes with a couple of toxic babes in pocket, and it is now 4 versus 2. G2 looking to get themselves number 3, which I think could seal the deal, but Azog scores big before being cut down by Stompn. Wasn't enough. No, while that man's alive, it's still possible. 2v1, and the G2 able to win that round. 3-2.
It's a really great start, fast push as well, like where we've seen them be slowed down so much. Almost like that impatience just built up and then exploded over in that round. 5v3, and yet a good fight back by GENG. Ultimately, as you say, Stompn is the one that's still left standing. I was a little bit concerned for a second because we saw Blaz go down with diffuser in hand inside a kitchen, and they had it. GENG side, this is beautifully covered from the hatch itself, but again, G2 always one step ahead, had a couple of players looking to challenge up there. Thank God it was Stompn, I guess.
Yep, manages to get the job done with a quick double inside of Geisha, and like I said, that for me starts the alarm bells, the sirens are going now if I'm GENG, because I think, right, we've now got to perform on attack. They've got 1 more round left on the defense, but G2 have got the 3. So what that means is that G2 can just hold on to those top 2 floor sites. They don't need to worry about kitchen. They don't need to worry about bedroom. They don't need to, this was a beautiful shot by the way. They don't need to win either of those tricky sites. They can just hold T Karaoke, Exhibition Office when they're on the defense, and they'll win the map. That's now the freedom they've bought themselves. So GENG, they are backs to the wall. This is, for that reason, this is an essential round for them. And let's not forget the overall stakes here. We're talking about SI qualification here at the regional finals. Not only is it about the team that wins qualifies to SI, but it's about the points that can be picked up as well. So it's not even necessarily for GENG about winning. I think it was something like 36% chance went up to an 84% chance, something similar to that. You know, just by winning this game, it's massive for GENG, and they are backs to the wall right now.
Yeah, it is not looking pretty, but let's see if they can do anything to turn this one around. Deadshot getting busy on the Solus in this round. We spoke about this back on Bank when they did run. It wasn't Deadshot playing it. I want to say it was Naquo. Maybe Skies. I think it was Skies. And we were like, oh, if they can get this working, that's excellent X Factor denial. And then 10 seconds later, he's dead. And G2 have sifted him out, got a track on him, no concerns beyond that point. Speaking of Skies, entry in the round as well as Alamau falls. It's the curse of the Lion, I swear. Doki has died nearly every time he's played the Operator as well. Now Alamau's getting a little bit of a sniff of that as well.
Yes, GENG, I commented last round that they've done well on the entry so far, and they've got all but 2 of them. So they're now 4 and 2 on the entry, so doing really well and continue to do so. It's at least giving them something to build from, and G2, of course, have been able to take rounds despite that in the first 2, but Doki just looking to get aggressive, spraying in through that Dragon Wall, though. Knows that there's somebody playing up inside of Shrine, wanting to try and catch them out if he could. Going to see the keeper barricade taken down, so pressure already mounting on this position. But again, I like this from GENG. We've seen this repeatedly. This great teamwork from them, keeping people in positions. The Soulless being kept in position in drum by the Azami playing elsewhere, and all of it's being held together by Azox on the Warden inside of Geisha. Double for Skies comes in, and that's going to be now almost the flawless round. Loira manages to find one to bring it back to 1v4.
Another ace, why not?
Why not?
End as we started. Sounds absolutely great. But this has been the most convincing round I've seen all day from GENG so far as well. Absolutely dominant. Giving nothing over towards the side of G2 except maybe a kill here. No. Loira forced back up, at least for a quick second here to get the reload complete. Being pressured out by the smoke at the same time. The Spies have got their entry. Down about 40 seconds. That is a lot of work for Loira to do, given he does not have the diffuser in hand either. This one should not be recoverable.
Nah, really shouldn't. 30 seconds left to go. You know, all that GENG need to do realistically now is take the hands off the keyboards. That's going to be a little bit, I was going to say it's going to be a bit of an audio cue as he coughs in the smoke. It's going to be a much bigger one as the Guzmot mine detonates as well. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Loira. They know exactly where he's coming from. He's low health. I mean, he's got the Operator to get a few kills, but I doubt he does as he swings around this corner. He's almost certainly going to... I love the patience here from GENG. Not taking... They know they don't need to take the swing. They've got the player just inside that wall as insurance. You know, they're screaming in your head, aren't you? Just don't swing, don't swing. You know, I'm praying that your fingers don't make you as a reaction, because that's the way you win that round. But yeah, great stuff from GENG. Managed to get themselves to 3-3. They've got an uphill battle as they get onto the attack. I'm not going to paint it a different way. They've played better here than they did on Bank. G2 now get onto the defense and need 4 rounds. They can just hold down them top floors, and Skyscraper attack is not an easy one. If we have a look at the numbers for GENG, they've actually got a better attacking win rate on Skyscraper than G2 had. They're up at 42%, G2 down at 37%. So that's something for them at least, I guess. You know, it's not a bad map for them, so maybe they can turn it around, but it's not going to be easy.
That's exactly it, right? Even though they played well, they've had a great round to close out round 6 as well. You're now attacking one of the hardest maps to attack in the entire pool, which is concerning, to say the least. Looking back at their record on this map as well, it's not really bad, to be fair. Both teams, I'd say, somewhat similar. Played it quite a bit. GENG are 2-1 at this point as well, last winning it against Wolves about a month ago. So certainly not bad, but they also lost to G2 here just a couple of months ago during what I assume was the Stage 2 playoffs. I'll do a little quick check and we'll know then. Yes, it was. And it was the second map of that series. So they've had some success here, but back then they completely managed to at least perform better during the first half. It was 4-1 defense. They then lost every single attack they played to eventually give the map over to G2 7-4. So forgive me for being a little bit nervous, but we could go on to see an exact repeat of that.
Or maybe they'll have learnt from it. Maybe they'll have learnt from it. Maybe they'll have studied the tape and they will be locked, loaded and ready. But the problem, I think, for going up against G2 is this is a team that has showed an ability to adapt, to flex, to have plan B, C, D, E always ready. So plenty of options likely for G2 to switch things up from what has been seen previously by GENG. So let's get into it. We're going to go to Exhibition and Office first time around, becoming a bit more of a primary choice for a lot of teams now rather than T and Karaoke. G2 also opting to start out on that side. The big question, of course, from the GENG supporter perspective is exactly what is the play going to be here? Do you get yourself inside a Geisha, inside a T and try to move across full map clear, or do you go direct to breach? We saw the difficulty with G2 trying to do that, didn't really pan out, but there's no clash on the board because it was banned away from GENG by GENG, of course, recognising the strength that they were able to find with it. So could be an opportunity for them here to get a bit of space.
Absolutely. Well, thankfully not being impeded by a clash is always going to help. He's going to start focusing on the actual site itself and trying to take down members of G2 rather than dancing against the shield you simply can't do that with. But Loira, of course, steps out. James with the Vector finds what a second with the C4. He is cooking something special today. Finally gets put down from the display window. But once the dust settles, Tim, it's still a 3 versus 3.
Yeah, importantly, Stompn got taken down elsewhere as well there. That's the Denari offline. And like you said, just keeping that man count level, even, you know, without that, they would have been behind there because of that big double from Lyra, who, as you quite rightly say, is having a phenomenal day. 11 and 6 so far here on Skyscraper. So 3v3, 1 minute 15 into the round. So plenty of time for GENG here. They can take their time, get on the drones, or they can just walk in and get kills. They're going to get the diffuser down as well. After manages to pick up one, sees a second, manages to get the kill. Good first attack from GENG.
Yeah, really, I'd say very minimal resistance from G2 as well, which is why I think they've rolled through. I mean, Astus also had a great round there, getting a 4K, massive for him, but G2, it felt, didn't really give up too much of a fight, which is what made the room for GENG to be able to push in so confidently, take out a couple of players in the initial entry, even though they lost themselves to the mirror quite early on. After that, they were just steamrolling through. Really good round.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they're... yeah, there's a huge performance from the Glaz in that round. I think G2 just move on to another site. I think get yourself across the T and karaoke. But it's a big message sent because, you know, coming into it, I said if G2 get 3 rounds, I fancy them to take this in 2 maps. You know, get themselves those 2 top floor defenses and just hold them down. But they've just had one of those sites absolutely ripped away from them by GENG. So if you're looking for a GENG comeback, believe me, that round is where it starts because G2 are now thinking, if we want the 7-5, we've got to win an off-site, probably. We're going to go to T and karaoke. Let's, for argument's sake, say they win here. Do they go back to exhibition office, or do they go to that 3rd choice site? I think they continue the rotation and go to maybe kitchen barbecue, but you've got a little bit of a gamble being taken then, and there's an opportunity for GENG to get the 2-1 quarter, and that puts us right on course for overtime.
Well, would it be a Desert Sim cast without at least 1 overtime, Tim?
I think it would be.
Bomb diffuser has been dropped.
There you go. Got to make sure one comes about at some point then. Maybe in the next series it will float, or as you say, it could be here as well. Now, more of the same coming out. We've got that Glaz on side once again, alongside a hell of a lot of utility to make this execute sting. Blackbeard, of course, applying a hell of a lot of pressure at the same time. On the other side, you've really turned towards Doki here, I think, to help combat the smokes. We've got 4 of them in back pockets, so obviously there's a lot of investment going in towards this Glaz being successful. Doki, who's not having the best map so far, is the main candidate to deal with that pressure.
Azok's just opening up that window, but it doesn't really matter as Alamai manages to pick up Skies. That's the Grim gone. Big loss. Still got a lot of execution utility. Ying, Blackbeard, Glass all can work together, but the Grim was going to be the one that really massaged the defenders and created a little bit of space. Azox is still bullying from Swords windows a little bit, but being held back quite nicely by Stompn on that Azami. Looking to get the Candela just lined up and into position, and it goes. And that's going to, again, create just a little bit... They're not in position, though. You know, I often thought that's, to me, a wasted Candela. It's gone in. The effects have now worn off. They can come out and make the challenge. You know, they need to get in there quicker on the back of that utility.
Well, there's a lot of aggression going on through, and G2 this time round are not sitting back and waiting for death to come to them. They are the death. Lyra on for a double. It's just on Deadshot, who is still the other side of the map here, but he's very much isolated. They're coming out the walls at this point, Tim. Doki as well, up through the Geisha wall off towards the right-hand side, and that is a very cozy round and much more of what we expected from G2 on this half.
GENG have done a great job in round 7 to get that first attack, get themselves pointing in the right direction on the road to at least overtime, maybe even taking the map, who knows. And then they come in the second one, and I don't even know what that was. Like I said, they throw one Candela in, they don't challenge on the back of it, so it's a wasted Candela. Another one goes in, they don't challenge quick enough. Lyra runs out of the breach and just gets 2 kills. That's a catastrophe, quite frankly, on that office breach. You can't be doing that. If you've got a Ying and you've got a Blackbeard, there is no way anybody should be coming away having killed both of them and not taking a death for it. It can't happen. So, you know, GENG from kind of 0 to 0 in 2 rounds there, you know, who knows what we're going to get from them in round 9.
Well, we've had one of each, as you say, so I'm not 100% sure what to expect coming out of it. I think G2 have realized, again, in that first round, they were being a little bit too passive and giving up a little bit too much room. And so now need to be a bit more proactive in their challenging. You know, I say this a lot about teams that are sometimes quite slow on the attack. Yeah, if you sit there and be too slow for too long, the defenders eventually will come to you. Like, you can rely on the clock running down to 0, but I think you're just kind of inviting chance there for the attackers to sort themselves out. if you have the ability to go aggressive, pick off 1 or 2 players while they're still plotting out exactly what it is they want to do to solve a problem or close out the round, that's the best thing that you can do to really try and turn around. And I think G2 are going to realize that more and more. We're willing to go and fight GENG, who have now turned towards what I assume is a double shield setup with the Blitz and the Fuse coming along.
We're going to have, however, Stompn on the Valkyrie, just loitering on house stairs. GENG need to make sure that their intel game is tip-top, so that they are spotting out the Valkyrie and knowing that the pressure could come from there. Need to be very careful that they don't let Stompn into the back lines. At the minute, he's just roaming around inside a reception now, looking to cause a nuisance. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
I just said that the drone game there we go. The drone game needed to be tip-top, and it zoomed straight past the Valkyrie. Stompn kind of giving up an opportunity there. He'd been misdrawn, and I think they would have followed in on the basis of that. But as he moves around, he then gets picked up on the drone, and really, I think it was a case of maybe stand still and just let them go running past you. But Azox is going to take a lot of damage there, so that's a good start for G2, starting to just back up that Blitz a little bit, maybe make him think twice about pushing forward aggressively.
They do the very best here, but I also think these drone blockers, you don't really see them all that often, but here, it's letting them play quite freely in that area them out without being seen out by these drones on the side of GENG. So again, also G2 are a step ahead and know what's coming and know how to respond to it. Doing a wonderful job so far and really taking a lot of the steam out of this GENG attack.
Yeah, and at the minute, it looks like if G2 can pick up this round, they really get away with that round 7 loss. You know, GENG have got to be kicking themselves. They put the pressure on, they got the first attack, and then if they let G2 win the offside, that's where you've given up that advantage. Blaz manages to get 2, easy as that. 1 through the soft wall and 1 on the flip. Blaz manages to make it a 3rd. Stompn picks up the last. That's 2 flawless rounds in a row, Des. So GENG have a successful attack and then haven't had a single kill since in the following 2 rounds. That's 10 kills to 0 deaths.
And they chose violence. That's all I can really say. G2 really have put the screws in these last couple of rounds. Yeah. It's another case where another G2 player has popped up and gone massive. And I've often said this about G2. They're very much a big hero play team. In fact, back in Munich, I still want to say, I'd have to go back and double check the stats that someone didn't overtake them, but they were the team with the most multi-kills on their players compared to any other. Furia led it for a lot of the event, very quietly to away, because obviously, of course, got knocked out quite early on, but then G2 jumped over them. And I've long said that these hero players are what I'm often concerned about with G2. If you're relying on players to clutch up or get a 3 or a 4K or even an ace like we saw from Loira to win a round, it's always the worry of, but what if they don't do that? Can lightning really strike twice? And the big issue against that is that every player on G2 is very capable of making that kind of play. And that, for me, is what makes them so scary. Even when things are looking bad in a round, and they certainly haven't for the last 2, there is always a player that can turn things around. And it's a very scary habit to have to come up against and face.
Tactical timeout comes in from GENG. And not a minute too soon, I think. After 2 back-to-back flawless rounds, something has got to change here. We've had a lot of, just looking through the list, quite a lot of the big multi-kill rounds as well have been the basis for these rounds being won. 2 for the side of GENG, 3 for the side of G2. So 5 out of 9 rounds so far have seen a 3K or better. And so it just seems to be those big performances from one player in a round is really winning the day for both of these sides on occasion. It was Blaz in that one with the 3K. G2, who's the ban? They're going to ban out the Grim and go back across to Exhibition Office. It's an interesting one because really it was the Glaz that caused them all the problems last time. Often we will see, as we did in the first half of this, we saw a great ban coming from GENG from ahead of round 4. They took out the Capitao that had stopped them using the Clash in the way that they wanted to, and they won the round on the back of it. It was brilliant stuff. It was really well worked. This time G2 take the Grim. I don't know how much that really, contributed in the first time they defended this site. I think they're probably just confident that they're not going to give themselves up to the Glaz. They're not going to give them those opportunities this time. But keep an eye on Naquo because they had a lot of joy last time.
Like I said before, he was one of our top players during stage 2, so I know that he's got a lot of capability. Didn't really get much done back on bank. He was having an alright time, to be fair, back in the first half here, but has been a little bit quiet, so it's what makes me a little bit nervous for them and what they can possibly accomplish if one of your top players is having a little bit of a quiet day. But that said, as you can see, others have also stepped up alongside him. Maybe Deadshot's been a bit quiet to this map, but that's completely fine. Not everyone can be the hero, of course. If everyone else is harvesting kills, where are you going to find any? So we'll see how things move forward here. To begin with, G2 looking to waste a hell of a lot of time. Maybe not wanting to lean on the Clash for what they can't lean on the Clash to expand away. So instead, Subaru plus that Bandit, very, very competent.
Working in behind the Faz again, using him as that kind of aggressive entry, trying to step inside of the smokes, but will take a little bit of damage from that random spray. The thing is, having played against it once already, G2 can confidently say if there's some smoke there, there's probably a glass stood inside of it. So let's just spray some bullets through and see what we get. In that case, we've got about half health away from Naquo, so it needs to be a lot more... It's too easy. It needs to be a lot more careful than that. Ooh. Alamo takes him down. Skies is there for the response, for the trade. IQ does take him down, but they have lost what was the driving force last time. It's going to be pressure onto the Blitz to make something happen now.
Exactly that. You've got the Kappa Tower with all that utility too that can assist the Blitz in doing that, but that shield now is your go-to. Problem is, of course, if you're coming up against any electrified walls you need to get through, can't do that. Loki's now gone through all his tuber out, so that's not too bad. Then you've got to deal sometimes potentially with those Denari lasers by Stompn being scattered around to impede him if he does jump in somewhere. So like this Blitz can just charge in for the fun of it. He's also got 2 C4s to play against. They've got to be really smart about the rest of this attack here, GENG. Like now you say, they've lost that main part of their attack, and okay, that's not really a way that I'd have thought about doing it, but Laura tries his best.
Yeah, I don't think it's really necessary from Laura there. He's having a day. He's 14-7, so yeah, sometimes you kind of got to think, look, everything's working for me here. I'll just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Doke does manage to level things up 3 versus 3. But yeah, I'm not sure the aggression was needed from Laura. They're not in a position where they can just jump in through the window. He can hold it from an angle instead. But look, if he jumps there and gets 2 kills, we say he's a genius. As it is, Azox is going to relocate with that Blitz. It looks like the push is going to come through Terrace because with 30 seconds left to go, they're going to have to commit to something.
Yeah, at least for him, that's where he wants to put the angle. They need a bit more pressure than just one window to push, and never a good idea towards success. All the utility going down, while the only thing the Blitz might coming through this window, he's working off elsewhere instead, but it looks like Doki might be at least aware of the Capital being inside now. He's ready for the challenge, and that's the key one. The Blitz has been shut down. Doki gets another in the round as well, stomping out with the close 2. What more is it to say? In fact, that final kill even came from those tripwires. Yeah,
GENG have seriously lost that momentum that they had after winning round 7, that opportunity they'd created by winning one of those primary sites. They now find themselves against the G2 that need one more round. One more round will get it done. It'll be 2-0, and they will move on to Malta.
All right, not looking bad at all for G2, certainly coming in full form. And I said at the start of the day, maybe you see them a little bit lethargic, a little bit kind of taking it a bit casually, but they have really come in here and brought the fire with them. Sets up some really interesting games, of course, before Malta rolls around next week. Wonderful country, they'll have a wonderful time there, and they were not ready to mess around. They want to get to that final, they want to get something in the trophy cabinet.
The thing is, it's, as I often say, winning's a habit. Winning is a habit. And, you know, whether you see it as the biggest tournament in the world, whether you see it as a regional tournament, whether, you know, whatever it is that you are playing in, are you playing in a, you know, a go-for on a Sunday, you want to be winning it. It's just about keeping that mentality, that competitive edge, you know, of going through and getting it won. And that's, I think, the position that G2 find themselves in. They've got 2 opportunities to close this out. So, interestingly, they're going to take us to Master Bedroom to begin with. So it's a bit of a curveball for GENG because it may be a site that I know G2 play this site, so I would expect everybody to know that G2 play this site sometimes. So GENG should have a plan for attacking it. It shouldn't come as a big surprise, but it's not going to be a site that you necessarily put as much time into preparing as you do for the others, because you know it's kind of a maybe 50-50 or less chance that you're going to be going to play here. But G2, I like it, you know, give it a whirl, and they've still got that primary site to fall back on. They can go to tea and karaoke if they need to in round 12 to try and get it closed out.
All right, well, let's see if it can get done here and now, or if GENG can take us through to that overtime we were speaking about. Very much running it back in terms of their comp. That glass coming up again. Smokes being spammed across the team. At the Capital side last round for even extra utility to jump through. Nice wonderful triangle, of course, left Denari in the window. Not very visible either, which makes it quite interesting. Got the IQ to help deal with those 2. Already aware they were getting, well, not... I don't mean this to be a pun. They were getting tripped up by them last time. Ha 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 ha. There he is. There he is. I wasn't doing that, I promise. Oh, nice try. Not the ideal one for Laura in terms of the C4, but yeah, they got hurt by it a little bit. It slowed them down. Tim, stop it. And so I think actually having the ability to ping them out here and deal with them before you go pushing in is a really good shout.
Yeah, big loss to the
Definitely respect being
utility
shown.
there. Big loss to the utility on the Nitro. You can't be giving them away to electricity like that. So not going to get the opportunity to get a couple of cheap, easy kills on that outside. Nitro will be avoided by a Deadshot as well. Well played there. Gets himself out of the window. Maybe just heard it beeping underneath. I don't know. Something certainly scared him enough to make him move away. But how about this aggression from Bandit on that breach? My big concern for GENG here, Des, is all this fighting is just to get above sight. It's not even to get into sight. And, you know, we know the verticals are important, but we're 1 minute 15 in and they haven't really got any ground yet.
Not yet, no, that's the issue, right? Not a lot of time to work with here and still much for G2 to hold on with. C4's admittedly expended, so that is what it is. Got to win a fight here, and that's the one you want. Skies, casual one-tap on towards Stompn. That should give some life towards this GENG side, Tim.
Yeah, again, I come back to that Grim ban, and I know you can't ban operators based on them having one good round, but G2 have consistently struggled against the Glaz even after the opportunity to take it away. They're still being punished. Deadshot does manage to find one. The pre-placed Nitro did take Skies down. Blaz fights back. 2v3, 35 seconds, and if Blaz falls back to site here, there's a real possibility as Alamo manages to take down Azox, but we are going to see a kill come through. A little bit of a response. Naquo manages to find his man, but Blaz, he makes it 2 in the round, can't find 3 as Naquo takes it to round 12.
It's another 1v1 where Blaz can't quite overcome Naquo as well. It comes down to that point where literally one more round stands between G2 going on forwards or GENG taking us to overtime, and then God knows if this goes all the way to 3 maps, then all bets are up at that point. I know Bank was very dominant, but as we can see on this map, it was G2's map pick. GENG have been far more competitive. Cafe is a very equal map for both teams. I couldn't tell you now which way it goes.
I'd agree with you. I just think given today's performance, I think G2 probably dig deep and get it done if it goes through to Cafe, because I think they have been the better team today. There's no way around that. GENG are fighting much better on Skyscraper than they did on the first one, but let's not forget it was a serious off-site choice from G2 there. They're now going to go to their primary. They're going to go to T and Karaoke, I would imagine, and yes, they are. So this is now much more difficult for GENG. If we look back, it was the first defensive round in round 8 that G2 won. They won it flawless. It was the start of 2 back-to-back flawless rounds. So yeah, I think there could be bigger problems here for GENG than there was in the last round.
Yeah, they're still really persisting on making this composition work as well. Yeah, I admire the persistence. They really are gunning for it here to make it work, because now the onus kind of turns onto G2. Like, based on the last round, G2 are the ones who now have to make a change. GENG can try the same thing again and again and again if they want. G2 have to find a way through. So what are they going to change? What are they going to bring along? Stomping on the Solus is the one. Not really a hyper-significant change for them, but it's enough that maybe, just maybe, you can pick away a lot of the utility and make life extra difficult for GENG.
G2 are going to get spotted out there. They're aware of the Solus's presence. They've got to come away with this kill. Simple as that. They know he's there. Good, prepared for it.
Oh, no!
Can't let him. No.
How?
Can't let him escape. They can't let him escape. Stompn, he's like water there. He just, just manages to just slide out of there and, through a gap that just shouldn't even be possible. Doki manages to take down Asa, so they at least make up for the misstep, GENG.
The reverse, Stokie has gone down to Asa here, Tim, which is not good for them. You've lost the Azami early, you lose the extra keepers, and of course, lose the gun. Almost in a way you could say they're trying a bit hard here to stop them being able to get towards that point of execute. I spoke about it before. Are we going to see them explode on forward here? Looks like they're ready to jump in through that terrace window and start putting pressure on. So G2 have got to be really respectful here. They can't just assume they can walk into every gunfight and come out on top.
No, I totally agree, and I think, yeah, maybe a little bit of over-aggression at the beginning there. G2 taking multiple fights at the boundary. I think just trying to get this done here and now, but yeah, a little bit of a risk there. We can see GENG just setting up, they're playing this slow. They're just not, feeding into that aggression of G2. Blaz has got himself in a heck of a position here behind this Kiba barricade, though.
Yeah, can they get rid of one though? I mean, the C4 is great on towards Asta here. The push comes on forward, and Blaz has got rid of two. That's the second one spine in the round. Sorry, a 4v3. Is this where it falls apart for GENG? Really trying to find some kind of movement forward here, but so far, kept at bay. Stomping another, and kill back the other way. It's a 3v2, but no! Naquan really had to have that kill. Now he's stuck in a 1 versus 3. Will find one. One off his left inside of gold, and one inside a geisha box. This looks rough.
Yeah, 45 seconds left to go. No choice but to try and get the 2 kills here. Stompn and Lyra, 2 of the best players for G2 on the day. Both had a great 15 and 8 on the side of Lyra. They're not the 2 that you want to be going up against when you have to get kills. He's not going to get an opportunity to put the diffuser down, and they're just toying with him at this point. Look at that. Stompn puts some shots in to take the attention. Lyra finishes him off from the other side. Beautiful stuff from G2.
Exactly what you wanted to see from them as well to close this one out. Do not open that door. Do not let them back in. And that is exactly